Helen, thank you so much for taking the time. I have to express that the time changes from California to Australia made it a little interesting how to coincide in the same time in this virtual space that we're seemingly living these days. So, as you know, the aim of these conversations is basically to just talk about our experiences as educators as we cope with the consequences of the pandemic, and then just to create an archive so that we can come back later on and review our thoughts and compare with the thoughts and feelings of other people all over the planet. So thank you so much for taking the time. The way I would like to start, Helen, is by you sharing a little bit of your personal and institutional context. And also, if you can tell us a little bit about your institution in terms of the socioeconomic context of the students you work with and whatever else comes to mind. So, floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm Helen Klaebe. I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor of Graduate Research and Development at QUT, which is Queensland University of Technology in Brisbane, Australia. My main role as professor there is to manage the PhD program, PhD and Research Masters program for the institution. So to give you a little bit of background on Queensland University of Technology, which we call colloquially QUT. It's about 50,000 students, of which about 3,000 are undertaking a PhD or research masters. Our university is a public university, as nearly every one of the 40 universities in Australia, except for a couple, are public universities. So it's very different to the US. They're large institutions, and the normal kids, if you like, when they leave school, will go to their local university. And our town has about 3 or 4, and they're all good quality universities, as is quite comprehensive. We don't do medicine, but we do everything else. So we do allied health. We have a large allied health nursing program, and lots of programs like paramedics and etc., health and wellness and etc. We have science engineering faculty, which covers everything in science and engineering that you could possibly think of, from chemistry right through to biomedical engineering. We have education faculty, creative industries faculty, which covers architecture and design right through, and fashion right through to acting and dance, etc. And we also have law and business. So I think that's all 6.
Really comprehensive, yes.
It's quite comprehensive, like I said, large, with 50,000 students. It's not like the US, where you have the campus and people kind of live on campus and it's a campus city. It's very much just a campus in the middle of the city, where students come and go. Most of our students actually come from a lower socioeconomic background, first in family to go to university. A lot are coming in as mature age students. We have a lot of mature age students who might be working and studying law or something in the evenings or in the after. You know, we've got very flexible learning. So all our every one of our lectures has to be available online for students.
Oh, this is normal practice for all of you already.
Normal practice, yeah. And all of the readings, everything that they need to access needs to be available online as well for them. So they don't have to kind of run to the library and fight over each other to, you know, photocopy pages, etc. Everything has to be available to them online. But they have always come in and come to class and as well. So we have a mix of people listening online in class, but also coming for tutorials. So that's the normal setup for undergraduates. And then for postgraduates, for me with PhDs, I have PhD students who are situated in hospitals, in research institutions around the city, but they might also be overseas at other institutions. They might be working in other research projects in other parts of the country, in industry. So it's very flexible how we run the program as well. So in Australia, if you're doing a PhD, you would have already done an undergraduate and a master's degree, and you come into the program. It's a 4-year program.
Exactly.
So you don't teach. You might have a part-time job, but you generally are not the professor's assistant to do what they want. You actually just concentrate on doing your project for that time, and a lot of students are on scholarships to do that, a stipend to support them just to study their research.
Exactly. So it's very, very intensive programs, I imagine. What was the size of the university? I don't know that
about just over 50,000 students.
50,000. So it's pretty large. Yeah, very
so
large.
Australia's quite unique because of we're a long way away from everywhere, but 3% of all research in the world is done by Australians, and yet our GDP globally is less than 1% and 0.3% of the populations, if you like, of the globe. So it's quite a significant amount, and we have a lot of collaborations with America, South America, Europe, and particularly our position close to Asia. Has been good because, as you know, with publishing and joint publishing, it's quite good if you're in two different sectors. So we've been very big on collaborating.
It's interesting, yeah. It's like Australia has this role of like a hinge between two different, very different regions. That's right. That's very interesting. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, but my background, as you know, is storytelling. So my research is in transmedia storytelling, particularly. So telling stories across multiple platforms. And so I'm doing a lot of work at the moment for my research project, which I have an Australian Research Council grant, which is given out by the Australian government. And that is to look at engaging communities in arts and cultural arts and storytelling projects in the poorest parts of Australia. So highest unemployment, lowest socioeconomic parts of far western Queensland. So this is very, very small regional rural communities, high Indigenous. Most kids don't go to school, are past year 12 or past high school. And also the top of Tasmania, which I don't know if you know, but Tasmania is the little island right down the bottom.
Yeah. I'm picturing it.
And that has a very high unemployment of young people, maybe 3 generations who've been on some kind of benefits. So it's a very difficult area to get work. So we're doing a project down there as well. So that's what I do in my spare time. But yeah, my normal job is kind of managing the PhD program across the board for the university.
So I know you've been quite involved in administration, but you still do then some work in the classroom then.
Yeah, so I hardly do any work in the classroom because what I tend to do is I do a lot of facilitating in community projects now through the research and just supervising, of course, my own students as PhD students.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Helen, I can help, but I'm looking at the background that you have, such a lovely background with the ocean and all of that. So, but Australia has been having difficult times with all the fires and now the COVID.
Yeah, we've had terrible time with fires last year, and a lot of natural resources burnt. But yeah, the COVID is even more challenging. So, and I'm sure it's the same. I'm interested to hear what it's like from you afterwards there. But of course, Australia's been in lockdown now for a while. We've
How many weeks?
We had about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and we've been very lucky to have been able to not only flatten the curve, we've almost eradicated any cases now. So we're only getting in our state, some days we're not having any, and some days we are having 1 or 2. So very, very, very low numbers now. Australia was very quick, particularly in areas that had Indigenous communities, to lock down those very quickly. So they were the first ones to lock down. So they just roadblocked. Australia is a huge continent, as you know, but we've even blocked between states, so you can't go across the border into other states. And all the cases that we have had, basically 2/3 of them have come from people coming off cruise ships or coming back from overseas.
Oh, imagine that. Yeah, yeah.
So we're just starting to think now how we're going to be able to open the country. But the government has put in an enormous amount of money into having JobKeeper schemes, paying people to still be connected to their job but not work. So basically on furlough, as you would call it in the States.
Yeah.
And the government has asked us all to download an app. So it's a tracing app that we have on our phone. So it runs off Bluetooth, which, people are worried a little bit about their privacy. But, of course, if you catch an Uber or buy anything on Amazon, everybody already knows everything about you. But
exactly.
I think they've had about 5 or 6 million people have already downloaded this app. And, of course, it was trialled in Singapore, and Singapore actually has had quite good success with it. But it's an app that basically, if I see you, and I don't know you, and we're in a shopping centre together, we spend more than 15 minutes in the same vicinity, and then you turn out to have COVID-19 down the track. The phone knows all the phone numbers.
Oh, who have been potentially exposed to that individual. That's very smart.
Yeah, so it doesn't keep the detail about the person, doesn't keep where you have been or where you actually came in contact with them. So it's not like the GPS and mapping. So you don't have to worry about your privacy of being followed.
Yeah.
But it's just a tool that they're using, because one of the hardest things, of course, is for the COVID detectives, as they're calling them, to be able to trace up where people have been.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's the best uses of the technology. Unfortunately, we know that we are being followed, even if it is only to get advertising. But now with these pandemics, to use technology in that way, it seems to justify the existence of all the satellites that we have around us and everything.
And it's really early days. Like, there's always going to be glitches with any app. So it's actually a great opportunity to try something like this out. So I'm really pleased that people are thinking about that, because the government's saying, if you want to go back to the pub, download the app. If you want to go back to the restaurants, download the app. So really kind of pushing it that you really need to do that, because if you can do that, then we know when if there's an outbreak again, we can actually do something about it.
So you have 50-something thousand students in the university. Did you lock down the institution for weeks ago?
Yeah. So we still have no students. We have no undergraduate students at all on campus. So that was the first thing to happen. The university was shut. No students were allowed in, and what we did is we had to turn every course that we had, and you can imagine 50,000 students, 6 different faculties, thousands and thousands of courses. We turned them into delivered online within 12 days.
Wow, that is. So that means you did have a capacity already in place, right?
Well, we had a lot of the capacity in place. So we already had good platforms, and we had half of the component. Like I said, we had the ability to do it and had done a lot of it. But to turn the whole thing online, including working out ways of doing work in, as you can imagine, in chemistry or physics, and posting rocks out to people so they can do their examination in relation to things or whatever. People have been coming up with amazing, innovative ways of
that is incredible, because that's the main concern for most institutions that I've talked to. There are many things that we can deliver online, but lab work is one that is always problematic.
Very problematic. And it's been problematic too, because of course we've got researchers working in labs. So we haven't closed any buildings down, so staff can still go to work. But what we have done is try to basically get rid of most people. So, for instance, I've got 200 people working in my floor. There's probably only 5 people that have been coming into work, and I've been one of them. So I'm working at home today, but normally I'm at work. So there has been able to be social distancing. So in the
Yes.
labs, for instance, they worked on having different time frames during the 24 hours so that they could keep doing work in the lab and have time to clean in between each session.
Mm-hmm. You're going into the winter's intersession, right? In a few weeks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you feel about your professors and your programs being able to attain the objectives of the semester? Is that semester or quarter system you have?
It's a semester. So we've had just finishing off semester 1. And we basically don't have the break like you have because it's winter, and we will roll in June into semester 2.
I see.
So yeah, it's they've worked really, really hard, and so the and a lot of universities have just been doing a pass-fail. We haven't decided to go that path for undergraduates. What we have decided to do is that no one will fail, which is quite unusual, but we've decided no one will fail, but we will also be able to give them like a high distinction credit. We'll be able to give them a range of marks.
I see.
So, I mean, I guess that could be problematic at the small end, but we felt that we didn't want to disadvantage those that had been working really hard to be able to have that differentiation of a good GPA.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's scope. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say, so as we've been now we've been online for this semester. Next semester, we'll probably stay online, but look at how we can just bring the lab component back.
Yeah. Maybe staggering the multiplying the sessions of the lab. So what would be the strategy? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would be to multiply those to have less in them and have rigid cleaning program in between each session.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be that's what they're looking at. But only what they have found actually is there's a lot that you can do online.
Absolutely. And there are elements of process that are just, quite frankly, I don't know if I should say impossible to replicate, but nowadays I just don't see how you can recreate that kind of experience. But and I'll linger in that topic a little more. But I meant to ask you before I forget. With 50,000 students, you should probably have very many different situations with the students. Are you facing, or some of the students are facing, issues with access in terms of not having good quality of connection, equipment, resources? Do you have some of that going on?
Yes, we do, and we have done a few things about that. So we've got emergency loans for students, well, not even loans. We've got emergency funding for them. They don't have to pay it back to help them get, dongles, or to get Wi-Fi at home, or to help them with their desk set up at home. So to making sure that they have good internet access. We also have not closed the university. So, for instance, if you need to get good Wi-Fi, you can come to the library. There's no one in the library that will be able to help you one-on-one like they used to. But you can sit there and get access to the Wi-Fi. Yeah. So the whole grounds of the university, and, this is our winter, sitting under a tree is... you can still get perfect Wi-Fi. So that has been really useful to make sure that the university hasn't completely closed its doors to anyone.
Yeah. So as I have been fortunate to talk to folks all over the world these days, one thing that I'm learning, and I would like to hear something from you, is the incredible creativity that is surging, right, to adapt to the situations, and the way people are teaching in Mexico, in Colombia, all over the place. And you can really see how creative and adaptive we get when we need to. So what of that is going on at your university?
Well, I guess because I look after the PhD, it's a bit different, but I have been really amazed at the papers that are coming out from academics around the world, but I know particularly in Australia there's been a lot of goodwill of sharing of information and good ideas on how to do work in the lab, how to change milestones of your students, how to adapt the pathway and the field work for research, which I think has been really innovative. And just the collegiality and sharing of papers and things like that, and making sure that there's everybody has access to as much information as possible, which has been good. I think what has surprised me too is about these Zooms. I don't know if you've been zooming, but I feel like I'm more connected than ever.
I think so. Yeah.
And this has been really great for our students who, like I said, are off-site, and so they are feeling more like they're part of the cohort than ever before. So that's been really good. Of actually being more connected and more involved in each other's work, which I think has been great.
Which is incredible. So when we come out of these weeks and months of emergency, we suspect that we're going to come back to a new normal, right? So when you think of this in institutional terms, what is this going to be doing to your university and your programs? How are they going to look different or similar?
One of my colleagues wrote a piece for a paper here this week, and where he said that it's kind of like our Kodak moment. We're not going to ever go back to how it was in the classroom. This has been what everyone said we couldn't do. We've all had to just do. So all the worries and fears about going online, about being able to adapt our teaching methodology and training and delivery has really been forced. The hand's been forced. So I don't think we'll ever go back to how things were. And what that means, I hope, is a deeper and richer engagement through knowing that online does not mean a very dry, boring delivery. It can still be well facilitated. The teaching role is actually more important than ever. And in fact, our university is putting more resources, like they're taking teachers off some types of roles, but are really turning to learning design and learning design speciality. So giving staff the time frame to be able to really work on how they can optimize what they've been able to do so far. I mean, we can't go back to that. I mean, we've got all our high schools, primary schools, everybody went online in a matter of weeks. It was incredible. Exactly. So we've got now all that material is available from prep, right, from 4-year-old programs right through to university, to PhD. And so if we go back, it would be, I think, a mistake, because I don't think you can put the genie back in the bottle. I think
exactly.
But you do not want to have poor quality programs. Online does not mean taking what you do face to face and putting it online. As we know with storytelling, everyone was worried about books dying, and I look now at the programs that are online, podcasting, the growth of podcasting, the growth of programs like The Moth, for instance. People just are ferociously having stories as part of their life more so than ever before. I've got books on my phone that I audio listen to. I've got other ones on my iPad that I read. I have real books that I read as well. I think what people were concerned about in the education space, other fields have really taken off, and this is our opportunity to say, okay, well, that's what we used to do. Now, how are we going to do this continually better?
Exactly. Oh, this is wonderful. Helen Klaebe, thank you so much for your time. It's always a privilege and a pleasure talking to you. I really thank you for your perspective from down under. I have to confess that one of the things that I do with my students every time is I present them with a map of the world from the Australian perspective. And the
Good.
first thing they say is that it's upside down. I say, no, it is not. So I have to thank all of you for that.
Thank you.
And it's always nice to hear you. Thank you for your time.
Always lovely to see you too. Thanks so much, Juan.